I'm an architect, and I worked for a number of architecture firms, mostly in Portland. The most interesting project that I worked on was light rail. But the biggest surprise to me as an architect was how important it was to really understand people and the communities and the neighborhoods. As an architect, especially as EGF, you know, it's the architecture. That's all the emphasis is on the thing that we designed, and it wasn't so much about people. And I quickly learned the hard way that when I would go and present an architectural idea in a neighborhood, people weren't impressed. That you know, I had to really explain why the design was important. And the second thing I learned was I had to listen, and I really had to pay attention to what the concerns and the fears and the negative things that the community was feeling, and then understand also, well, what were their hopes and their dreams and the wishes that they had for their children or their business or their community and their neighborhood. In 2000, I decided to leave ZGF and come to TriMET, and it was a great move because I got to write my job description. They didn't know they were looking for an architect until I told them they should be looking for an architect in-house in the agency. So my role over the 14 years has been helping all of our agency put our customers and our clients' needs first. That sounds so obvious. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? And the third thing that we've learned is we're really not about moving people. We're really about moving the community, helping the community become what it wants to be. The businesses, the places to live and shop and eat and entertain and all the things that happen in a city. Our projects bring people together and they have to discuss that. They really have to talk about that. And when they begin to talk about that, that's when the project begins to really happen. And I call that the human infrastructure. So we're really creating a human infrastructure. When you really, you know, so the things that we build and the things we make are the result of the human infrastructure and how they're thinking and what they're wanting to become. And so that's why it is this evolution of a process. And it's been very interesting and very exciting to see over the 20 years that I've been doing this, that understanding beginning to become more and more common throughout the neighborhood and communities as people have, you know, experienced these projects.
交通機関なのにもうコミュニティ作りが本職になってるね、機関として。
Kind of a Portland tradition that's over time has been sort of worked and worked and worked and worked. But that's what makes us, I think, both different than a lot of the United States cities. It's also difficult to do.
Even in Portland.
Even in Portland. But then it becomes easy to do.
Right.
So, you know, I use the expression, the difficulty is in the imagining. If you cannot imagine something, then it's difficult. But once you can begin to imagine it, then you begin to figure out how. And design is how. So everybody in here who is a designer at TriMET in some way, because we're all trying to figure out how to create something that's going to be useful in my company, that people understand that. And the kind of divisions between I'm an engineer and you're a bus driver and I'm an architect and you're a police, you know, it's now a shared mission, and it's, you know, kind of now up there on the wall we talk about this. So now it is kind of right out in front, and we're very open about that. We want to, it's a challenge, but it's also something to remind us, the head and the heart working together.
That's funny, the vision is almost the same as ours, the PDC.
Yes. And this is, I think, this sense in our communities that we all have a role that we play, but it's a role that is shared. I can't do it by myself. And Greg had an expression of contingent relationships, and something. I will do something if you do something. If I don't do it, you're not going to do it. If you don't do it, I won't do it. But if we do it together, now we have a relationship. The idea that was up here and kind of came down, it was more at this sort of level and began to get, okay. But we have found that when we do that, the things we make, they're better, they're stronger, they last longer, they're much more cost effective. We have a terrific reputation in the United States for doing very difficult things under budget or on budget, which in the United States is kind of like, no, you can't do that. Public projects are always going to spend more money than their budget. When you agree that you are going to have contingent relationships, now it's, can I trust that person? Mm-hmm. And how do you build trust? You build trust through demonstrations of, I said I was going to do this, I did this, now you can trust me that I will do that again, and vice versa. So back and forth it goes. And we're constantly being reminded that we have to be trustworthy. And sometimes in this discussion that we have, it's not surprising. People will want something, and at the end of the day, in that discussion, you say, I just can't do it that way, or I can't get to where you think it needs to go, but I can do it this way, and I will explain why. So we do have that conversation, and it really serves us very well, because then people, now they understand, and they'll talk to their neighbors, right? And they say, we asked them to do this cleanup of the river, and we want them to build a beautiful landscaped embankment on the river, and we asked them to do habitat restoration. Well, they didn't do all that, but what they did do, and now people can explain that because they understand it and they know that. So rather than we talking at them, we're finding that human infrastructure of knowledge and communication, and then they become advocates. And we also introduce and say, Steve, you might want to talk to Mary from our last project. She had a restaurant, has a restaurant, and during the design process, during the construction process, and now that the project is open and working, she understands her business very well, and she probably can give you some good insights. And so we will make those introductions, and that's that peer-to-peer teaching and learning and conversation. Now Steve will come to us and he'll have a list. I want this. Okay. Really? Yeah. All right. Hey, Mary, they did it. So this is where this education, over time takes place.